Hey, Al McCoy here, and you are listening to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Suns Show.
And you are watching the Solar Panel podcast. You can also subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anything like that. My name is Tim Tompkins. We have Greg Esposito and Dave King on the episode today, as always. So we are coming up on a quicker than normal trade deadline. This one falling on February 7th, so we're a little bit more than a week away. Moved up a couple of weeks, and it's before the All-Star game now. But I wonder how these teams are adjusting, because we've seen in prior trade deadlines where you have so many trades, obviously, that happen right at the trade deadline, but it also happens right after All-Star break. And the reason why that's important is because you have all these executives all hanging out at the All-Star game, All-Star week, where a lot of the discussion about trades happens. And I wonder how much this affects specifically the Suns in this scenario, because James Jones does not have a relationship with a lot of these other GMs that other GMs do, because they've been, in the game for so long, and stuff like that. Those situations that he can't really get into might make a difference.
Well, let's be frank. One weekend hanging around other GMs and executives wasn't going to change that. I mean, it's easier because he doesn't have to track down phone numbers he didn't necessarily have. But I don't think it was going to make a big difference in terms of what James Jones is going to be able to accomplish at the deadline. It could affect other deals, though, because you're right. There's a lot of discussions that happen at those at the deadline for at All-Star weekend in the past that happened face to face. But it'll be interesting to see how much action there actually is this trade deadline with those factors. Like I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but can Kelly Oubre even be dealt, because it's not a long enough time?
He can be dealt by himself.
Yeah, so it even impacts that kind of
from
stuff,
the Suns. I mean, he cannot be aggregated with any other Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I mean, because that impacts now those December 15 guys. It changes the dynamic of things, basically, but I don't know that it'll change
pretty much
amount.
At this point, pretty much any player, with a couple of exceptions, can be traded right now, but a lot of them cannot be aggregated. Anyone who is traded mid-season cannot be aggregated together. However, you could send Kelly Oubre to a team with a very small trade exception, because his current salary is only around $3 million, I think. And all you need is a team to absorb him into that as part of a larger trade that works separately with the money and all that, and it could be executed as multiple transactions, but still be a larger trade. So it is possible to trade Oubre to another team with a group of other Phoenix Suns, but the trades would have to work independently of each other with the salary cap.
I do find it a little bit interesting. So kind of, so we'll see teams that you'll notice, like team trading with another team fairly often when a lot of trades go down. And that is because those relationships matter. People know each other, and this is a human business. It's not just pulling out the NBA trade machine and making things work. So far, we've seen James Jones execute one trade, and that was with the Wizards. And so looking at like players on the Wizards and thinking about guys that might be available, you might have like Thomas Satoransky, but I'm not sure if you guys know necessarily what other teams James Jones might have a relationship with. The Miami Heat, that could be another one.
The Lakers, he knows a big name over there that basically runs things. So let's be fair too. James Jones has executed 2 trades. He just got the first one wrong. So
right.
Oh my gosh. All right. You just don't know. See, here's the thing: is there's 14 teams in the West who don't want to sell. Okay, so the dynamic here is all weird. James Jones probably is not interested in more first-round draft picks. He hasn't hired any scouts or anything like that. And he has said, while he's said that it's going to be difficult to upgrade long-term via trade, He's more interested in free agency where he just has to deal with players because he's got much more of a relationship with players than he does with GMs. So and now he's saying trades are difficult and he hasn't hired anybody to scout college. So it kind of looks like if they do anything, in my opinion, there's going to make more room for the summer for free agency. So TJ Warren has multiple years left on his contract at around 11 million per year. If the Suns do make a trade, I wouldn't be surprised if it's for an expiring contract, which just makes the rest of this season even that much more unbearable because they're going to be acquiring yet another player who's just going to be a free agent and leave the team.
There's a weird competing dynamic here, though. Woj reported earlier this week that the Suns are a seller, right? And when you're a seller, you usually think, okay, well, they're doing it because they want to tank. Because he mentioned, a few of the other bottom feeders in the league were also sellers to try to improve that draft stock. But then we hear, well, the Suns don't have college scouts, so they don't really care about this draft. So why would you then be trying to lose more? Like, it's just, there's so many
I don't
weird
know that they're
factors.
intentionally right. I don't know that they're intentionally going to try to lose more. I mean, it's hard to lose any more than you currently have. The Suns are in their worst 365-day stretch of their lives as a franchise. So they're not trying to lose more games. I think they are ready to move on from TJ Warren. We've gotten indicators from several different places. Greg, you want to talk about what you may have heard on this front?
No, well, we'll talk about that after. Wait a segue though.
Weird. Okay, tell us, Tim. Tell us exactly which box you want us to stay within.
All right. So, well, first off, I want to thank a listener for supporting the show. If you are watching on YouTube right now, or if you are listening wherever you listen to podcasts and you open up the show notes below, you will see a little button that says support the podcast. So I want to go ahead and thank Jake Brogner, longtime listener of the podcast, for supporting us. We really do appreciate you, Jake.
Hey, can I thank another listener?
Yeah.
We got a great note from Vince. I think we joked around about this, that a listener didn't want to go through the electronic method to donate to the show. So Vince actually sent me cold hard cash in the mail and a nice note that said, hopefully with the other solar panel listeners' contributions, things will add up. You are talented guys and may even move on to the big time. In any event, thanks for all the chuckles, Vince. So he sent us, I won't say the dollar amount, but a sizable amount that you guys are never going to see because he sent it to my house. But thank you, Vince, for contributing in a non-digital fashion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vince. We do appreciate you. And if you do want to support for $1 a month, just open up the show notes and click on the Become a Supporter button. We really do appreciate it. If you do decide to go ahead and do the $10 option, I will personally send you some Suns swag. So
I'm sending Vince some autograph swag for the cash that he sent us. So not my autograph, actual Suns autograph. So.
That would be kind of funny. So Dave was alluding to it, though, prior to me cutting him off, that Greg might have a little bit of Suns news to break.
I don't know if I'm breaking it. There was a report, I believe it was on your site, Dave, on Bright Side of the Sun, that Evan Sidery had mentioned that Robert Sarver had requested, demanded, however you want to say it, that TJ Warren be moved in the offseason. I actually looked into it further and have confirmation that in fact is true, that Robert Sarver basically demanded that TJ Warren be moved and his long-term contract be moved in this past offseason. So if you put the dots together, Suns are sellers, according to Woj. Sarver had pushed for TJ Warren to be traded this past offseason. He's the likely target, I'm guessing, to get moved because also he's probably the only piece of value that the Suns have at this point that you can move and clear space. So there you go. That's what I know from sources that I've confirmed with that were close to the situation.
So they were supposed to trade him last summer and never did.
Well, Sarver demanded it, asked for it, and yes, it did not happen, obviously. So,
and then Ryan McDonough was fired.
Yes, and I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm sure there was a multiple reasons why it happened, but I'm sure that did not help.
Oh, yeah, the list of reasons Ryan McDonough was fired probably resembles the nice and naughty lists from Santa Claus. Just unroll the entire parchment, just yeah. That could just be one of them, though.
The other part is Sarver's irrational too. So yeah, it could have been he could have looked at him funny that day. That could have been why too. So, but this was probably part of it. If he had a direct order to move TJ and it didn't happen.
Which is interesting because right now TJ Warren sprained ankle, sidelined through the All-Star break, or through the trade deadline, I should say.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to stop somebody. I don't think it'll stop anybody.
No, that's not what I'm implying. I'm implying that the Suns might intentionally be sitting him with that sprained ankle, knowing that he's on the trading block, so nothing further happens and devalues the stock. I mean, we're talking about a guy that scores 18 points a game. He's been very efficient from the field this year, shooting 43% from 3-point, 31 minutes a game. I mean, he's been, he's solid, and a lot of teams can use.
Well, yeah,
right now.
Yeah. Look at based on the history,
because
based on the history of relationships that the Suns front office, from Ryan McDonough in the past to Robert Sarver a lot. That relationships with players sour, and then they start playing poorly, and then they start acting like they're in a bad mood all the time. Then all of a sudden they're gone. So I wouldn't be surprised if TJ Warren is the latest of those guys who got wind of those demands to be traded and has responded poorly after an opening month or two of the season to show teams that he's got a 3-point shot. So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he's being sat through the trade deadline at this point. There's only a week and a half left.
Honestly, though, if they trade TJ Warren just for some expiring contract to give them cap relief for the offseason, I'm going to be so angry. That's way too. That's far too talented of a guy to move in that kind of of a deal. It just does not.
Warren
make sense.
Has always been a really difficult proposition, though, because while he is talented at scoring when he's focused in. And now he can make 3-point shots without really hardly thinking about it. He still doesn't like taking 3-point shots. His attempts are down to just under 3 in the last several weeks, and he doesn't play defense, and he's a terrible rebounder. So I'm not really sure. He's a great sixth man off the bench. So if you can send him to a team that either A, thinks he's going to grow into a better player over the course of his 5th to 9th years in the league, or B, want him coming off the bench of your playoff team, then he's a great acquisition. But he's really not going to get much better than he is right now. Although I did say that last year, and he added a 3-point shot. So who knows what's going to happen there, but I think he's got a lower value across the league than Suns fans want him to have.
Yeah, but it's still more than, hey, take this guy that we have no intention of keeping, so you can have more cap space to get people who aren't going to come here anyways this summer.
Well, we don't know that people won't come here. I think that's what James Jones is putting in his back pocket, is that he's telling himself, if not everybody else around him, that your best bet's going to be free agency, because then all you have to do is deal with players, and James knows how to talk to players.
Yeah, but let's look. I mean, I get it. It wasn't James Jones running the show, but look at the last 5-6 off seasons. And the reality of things is Phoenix is not a destination, and hell, it hasn't traditionally been. If you look at what are the biggest free agents to ever sign here? Steve Nash, who had been here previously.
Goran Dragic, who had been here previously.
Danny Manning, who came here on a wink deal back in the day, knowing he was going to get taken care of, and Tom Chambers. Those are the biggest free agents that you've ever attracted to Phoenix.
One a decade.
Yeah, it's not a huge list. So I don't have a whole lot of faith that James Jones, even with a mountain of cash, is going to be able to attract anybody of any real substance here.
Oh yeah. I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just telling you what I think I'm piecing together from messages from the front office.
So they're sellers, which means they're not going to add a major piece, which means that draft pick is not going anywhere, but they don't want to draft anybody. Like, the whole thing is just weird.
Well, I think they wouldn't mind being swappers. I think the Suns would rather be able to pick up a guy they'd love to keep past this year in exchange for TJ Warren, who they don't want to keep past this year anymore. I think they'd rather that, but I don't know that James Jones loves the negotiating with other GMs part of the job. And so maybe Trevor Buckstein will do all that negotiating and James will just be part of the advisory panel. I don't know what kind of relationships that Trevor Buckstein has developed, but he has been one talking on the phones for years with other teams. Although if you look at the Suns trade history, it hasn't been awesome. You don't know if he had better trades lined up that were previously denied. We don't know. But I don't think James really loves negotiating with these other GMs. So I think it's going to be, he would love to add a long-term piece, but I think he's going to settle for having more room in free agency. That's just my guess as an observer.
Well, Trevor built a great relationship with me, so if he wants some of the stuff I have in this room, I'm willing to deal it for TJ Warren. So at least we know there's one relationship.
Yeah, yours is not the kind of relationship our GM needs to have.
No, I don't. This is going to be a very weird deadline. Very much like this has been a very weird season.
Well, here's the thing. It could be. It obviously is very weird. It's very unconventional. It's very
traditional,
unqualified. We have a bunch of unqualified people in positions that probably shouldn't be the ones doing the negotiating. It doesn't mean the Suns won't end up with something good. It just means it's much more unlikely.
What is working in the Suns' favor is that there's a lot of buyers right now. I mean, if you look at the standings in the West, the 9th, 10th, 11th seed are only 3 games out of the playoffs. If you look in the East, same as well. 9th, 10th, and 11th are 2 to 3 games out of the playoffs. And there's not a lot of sellers. So really, this is the time to be a seller, if there has ever been a time to be a seller, and it is not the time to be a buyer, which does kind of work out in the Suns' favor.
Yeah, true. And I think they need whoever negotiated this new arena deal is the one that they should have negotiating trades, because they got a pretty damn good deal there. So
get Jason Rowley on that phone.
Those part of the front office should be doing the deals. But you're right. I mean, if there ever was a time, it's when you have this many teams that still think they have a shot at the playoffs and are looking for that piece to just get them over the hump. And I'm sure TJ Warren looks quite attractive in that spot for some of these teams that need scoring off the bench. So we'll see. I yet again, I don't have a whole lot of faith that this is going to go the right direction.
So we're going to go ahead and take a break. But before we do, Mr. Dave King, who do we have coming up on the show?
We have a really good interview coming up with Dwayne Rankin, who works for the Arizona Republic and writes online at azcentral.com. He was there during all the scuffles and arguments and fun long showers. He wasn't in the showers with the players, but they were waiting outside the locker room on Friday night. And so he can give us his firsthand observer insight into what's going on with the Phoenix Suns lately. That's coming up next.